So, apart from that, the discussion about the bailout fund absorbs the other problem of the Eurozone, which is the behavior of the European Central Bank. Whereas we have a discussion on the parliamentary procedure to vote in favor or against a bailout fund, which puts Germany on the way to fiscal union. Mr. Trichet's ECB, for more than 3 years by now, practices, as a matter of fact, qualitative and quantitative easing. In the financial crisis, they quite proudly said that they would give, first of all, to Greek banks all liquidity they need, accepting all collaterals they would hand in, and in particular, Greek government bonds. So they did as well with Ireland and Portugal. So we have created, so to speak, a special banking zone, including the banking sectors of these 3 ailing countries. They can refinance themselves at conditions the other banks cannot refinance themselves. This is totally in contradiction with the idea and the letter of the single market, where we have the rule, the fundamental rule of non-discrimination. How can it be justified that not only for a couple of months, but for years by now, ECB practices qualitative easing, creating different conditions of refinancing? This is not only a distortion of competition, which is fundamental as well, the common market, but it's a source of financial instability. So Mr. Trichet, against the opposition of the German members of the EC board, the Luxembourg member of the EC board, and the Dutch member of the EC board, has transformed ECB to an instrument of fiscal policy. And he has assumed the task of being the guardian of financial stability. The continuous policy of qualitative easing has created a discrimination within the European banking sector, within the banking sectors, the different banking sectors in the Eurozone. From May on, we had the phenomenon of the central bank for the first time innovating, pioneering, as they said, purchasing bonds on the secondary market, which, according to us, is a breach of Article 123 and a breach of Article 125 of the treaty, because the European Central Bank has no mandate to intervene on the market in these massive amounts. By now, they have purchased for an amount of about 160 billion. This is far beyond their boundaries. This is no longer open market policy. Open market policy serves as a sort of fine-tuning of monetary policy. The ECB conducts fiscal policy. They are out of bounds, and they have to be judged. And that's why we have taken legal action in the Court of Justice in Luxembourg, and we will see whether the Court of Luxembourg will be able and is willing to see that without jurisdiction in that case, ECB will be without any control. We began our plea in the writ by reminding a man for whom I have the profoundest respect. It is Lord Denning, Master of the Rolls, who in the 70s in Britain, towards the trade unions, said, "Be you ever so high, the law is above you. Be Mr. Trichet ever so high, the law is above him, and he deserves to get a ruling which limits the self-authorization, the self-empowerment of ECB as some sort of fiscal policy fire brigade man."
Understood. Is it likely that the court will take the case and rule on it, in your view?
Well, otherwise,
or is it too political and therefore they're going to sidestep it?
All constitutional complaints are very political. This is in the very nature of constitutional complaints. As long as a case is pending, and as long as I'm the attorney, I never make any comments on the court.
Okay.
Because I suppose as long as I haven't seen the verdict, the court is being totally impartial. So now we got a ruling from the Constitutional Court, and I give my criticism on that. Be it within or as long as the procedure is lasting, I commit myself to discretion. But of course, we do hope that the violations of the treaty, which nobody puts into question, even not the central bank, will be legally assessed. Why? Because otherwise, if they are not assessed, if they are not appreciated, there would be a precedent, because the European Central Bank, being a pillar of the European Monetary Union, could act in a way totally independent of law, no longer subject to the rules of the treaty. We fought for these treaty rules, Articles 123 to Article 126. We said our consent to the European Monetary Union is subject to the implementation of these rules. No monetary financing by the central bank, no bailout clause, no bailout of ailing countries. Now ECB acts to bail out countries, to help them, asking these countries to, or urging them to organize austerity measures. It's not the task of the central bank to urge governments to organize austerity packages. It is the task of the parliament and the government to come back to their senses and to negotiate that with the population. This is a democracy. The governments have a contract with the people. They don't have a contract with the European Central Bank. So we have a system in the European jurisdiction which presupposes so-called privileged plaintiffs, which is due to the fact that the great danger in the beginning years of the European Community was violation of the treaty by a member state. In that case, the Commission intervened and took the member country, to the court. Or another member country found fault with the behavior of a neighbor, and they took them to court. So this is what we call the privileged plaintiffs. But today, we see that the member states of the Eurozone, the European Commission as the innate guardian of the integrity of the treaty, are a cartel, a conglomerate of institutional powers who, of course, have disputes between each other, but they are well united in the will never to take each other to court and to leave these normative pillars of the European Monetary Union in a legally undefined territory. So we would like to bring light to that legal territory, because all these rules serve nothing if they cannot be invoked by a citizen. So our trial, our action, our legal action is not only important for ECB, it is important to protect the European citizen against the violation of the treaty by European institutions.
Understood. Were there any remedies in the treaty when rules would be broken, that people would be removed from office or anything of that nature?
Yes, you can, of course, invoke breaches of the treaty if the breaches of the treaty committed by community institutions have a direct impact on your situation. So nobody knows for the time being what is a direct impact. But we interpret that in a very large way, because the jurisdiction which is at the origin of that interpretation goes back to the 60s and 70s, when the community had far less competences. With the Lisbon Treaty, there is a quantum leap of competences. And this quantum leap of more European competences must correspond to a stronger legal control by the citizens. I give you another comparison. Germans have very much fought for political independence of European Central Bank, because they believe very much in institutions like the cartel office or the insurance supervision or banking supervision, which are politically independent. That is to say, no government can give them instructions. No government could give the Bundesbank instructions to act in this or that way on interest rates.